Alright, this is going to be our last and final video for Chapter 5. We're actually going to look at both Objectives 8 and 9. Objective 8 is dealing with burns, and so a burn is just any injury to tissue that's caused by things like heat, friction, chemicals like acids, could be radiation or electricity. And so what will happen is the damage from any of these factors could result in the death of the skin cells. Now, burns can be very, very serious and dangerous because they can lead to a massive loss of fluid. And so when we damage that outer boundary that helps us stay hydrated and protects us from pathogens, it can be very serious because of dehydration. It could lead to electrolyte imbalance. It could lead to kidney failure or circulatory failure. Anytime we're affecting those body fluids, it can be very, very dangerous. It's also very very hard on us too, because when we lose that first line of defense, when the skin is injured, it can make us very susceptible to bacteria and other pathogens. And so people who have experienced severe burns have a very high risk of infection. In fact, that can definitely lead to fatality when it's hard to control those infections. So burns are definitely something very critical. Now, we classify burns in two ways. Number one, we look at the surface area of the body that has been burned, and we use the rule of nines for that. We're going to look at that here in just a moment. I also included a video at the end of the PowerPoint that discusses the rule of nines. And so a lot of times you may hear, that they burned, 18% of the body or something like that. We use the rule of nines to determine that percentage. And then we can also look at burns in terms of the depth. Are they partial thickness or full thickness? And that's where you get into the different degrees of first degree through a fourth degree burn. So the rule of nines is used to calculate the approximate surface area that the burn takes up. And so what the rule of nines does is it breaks the body up into 11 different areas, and everything's kind of based on a 9 or a multiple of 9. And so, like for instance, the head, if you look, all of these are both anterior and posterior. So you've got the front of the body and the back of the body. So the whole head is going to be 9%. So the anterior is 4.5, the posterior is 4.5, for a total of 9. Now the arms are going to be 4.5 front and back. So that gives you a total of 9% for each arm. So once again, 4.5 for the anterior arm, 4.5 for the posterior arm, so 9 for the whole arm. And so each arm is 9. The trunk, you could further break it up into like the thoracic and abdominal, but essentially you've got 18% on the front of the trunk, and you've got 18% on the back of the trunk. And so that's going to give you a total of 36%. And then you have your legs, so the front of your legs is 9% each, the back of your legs is 9% each, for a total of 18% each leg. So what they'll do is when someone has a large burn, they'll kind of use this rule of nines and convert it to a percentage. It is different for children. So this picture that I showed here, a lot of times their body proportions aren't quite the same. Like infants have larger heads, so that percentage is higher. But for the most part, you just need to know the rule of nines for the adult. Now, in terms of the depth of the burn, we can look at it in two ways. You have partial thickness, and so in a first degree burn, it only involves the epidermis. Pretty much this is just going to be a surface burn that may get red, it may hurt, maybe a little bit of swelling, but these heal pretty quickly and they won't scar. A second degree burn is when it actually goes into the dermis. And one difference here is that you're going to see blisters. And so a blister is just any time you have a separation between your epidermis and your dermis. And so when it burns down into that next layer, it creates those blisters that you see. A lot of times they fill up with fluid. It definitely takes a little longer to heal here, sometimes up to several months, and there is potential for scarring, depending on how big of a burn it really is. All right, now once you get into third degree and fourth degree, these are considered full thickness burns. They actually go all the way through the epidermis and the dermis completely. These are very serious and very critical, and very painful to recover from after skin grafts and things of that nature that have to be done. And so initially, when you get a 3rd degree burn or a 4th degree burn, a lot of times there's not pain because you have burned through those sensory receptors. And so the 3rd degree area is painless. Now, if you have other areas that aren't all the way down around it, there's going to be pain there. But the actual 3rd degree burn itself is going to destroy those nerve receptors, and so the pain is not going to be felt. The healing does not typically occur on its own because you damage those critical tissues of regeneration, and so usually skin grafts are necessary, and it can be a long, painful process. Now, 4th degree goes all the way through the skin tissue, and it all goes all the way down into other tissues like muscles or tendons or bones. A lot of times the burn itself is black in color, and frequently these cannot be fixed. There really aren't a lot of treatments, and so the tissues may just die, and that part that experienced the 4th degree burn may actually have to be removed. So if a person is burned on their entire left leg, okay, so entire left leg means front and back, all right? So entire leg would be 18%, and an entire arm. So we have the left arm and the right arm. So the arm, the total arm is 9, the total leg is 18. That is going to give us a 27% surface area burn. All right, and the last objective that we are going to look at is the effect of aging on the skin. And so our skin does change over time. You know, when we're young, it's very elastic and it's pretty and bright. And as we get older, we definitely start to see changes in that skin. When you become a teenager, it changes in the oil content, and you may get, you know, pimples and things like that. And so we're mostly going to focus on as we get older, you know, beyond the adolescent years. And so what happens is, remember, that skin is constantly being exposed to abuse. We've got chemicals, there's things in the air, there's radiation. And so over time, the skin is going to be damaged. And so as we age, that epidermis is going to thin, the collagen is going to decrease. There's a greater chance of skin infections. The skin repair doesn't happen quite as quickly. It's not regenerated at the same rate that it was when you were younger. Those elastic fibers along with those collagen fibers are going to decrease. There will be fat loss in the hypodermis, and that's what causes the skin to kind of sag or wrinkle in different areas. The sebaceous gland activity declines, which causes skin to be drier and kind of more papery looking. Some areas of the body show that more than others. There's a reduced ability to regulate temperature because there's a decrease in the activity of the sweat glands. Also the blood supply. A lot of times elderly people, they usually get cold pretty easily. Their skin is thinner, there's less fat, and there's less blood flow, and so that can lead to them feeling cool faster than other people. The number of melanocytes that are working decreases. So as a whole, like, your older skin will not tan as well as your younger skin. But on the other side, melanocytes do increase in certain spots, and that's what leads to age spots, like on your hands or face. The hair can change over time due to a lack in melanin production, and so that can lead to white or gray hair instead of your usual color. And the hair also loses its luster, the follicles declines, and so a lot of times there's a thinning of the hair as well with age. All right, at the very end of this video, I just wanted to show you that I did include a few videos that you can watch. There's Crash Course over the whole system. There's a short video on skin cancer, and there's also a short video on the rule of nines. I would encourage you to check those out. And as always, don't forget your quizzes and your lecture tests. This time the lecture test is only one chapter, so be sure you're paying attention to due dates and be sure you are prepared. Y'all have a great one.